listening to Oilers Nation Radio, a member of the Nation network of podcasts and delivered by DoorDash. 1 hour straight hockey talk with Dan, Rick, and Tyler and Bag Milk starts now.
Welcome to Oilers Nation Radio, episode 149. I am Bag Milk here with Dan, Rick, and Waz sitting in for Tyler. New Tyler. Improved Tyler.
Oh, thank you.
For some reason, Tyler Yaremchuk, normal producer for Oilers Nation Radio, thought it would be a good idea to take a vacation during the busiest week of the NHL's news cycle in the offseason. Why did he do that, Dan? I don't know.
Imagine taking a vacation at all, really. This guy.
Do you even know how to grind, Tyler? And then what did he say? Like, what did he say? He's like, I can record Oilers Nation Radio on Friday if we do it at like 4 a.m. or some shit like that. Like,
no, I'm okay.
Get out of here.
He was really malleable for us. He was making himself available at all hours.
Just really, really bent over there on his vacay. Gracious as always, Tyler Yaremchuk. Where are you now? I don't know. We've been
if we get some sort of trade in this little hour or whatever we use, what are the odds on that he calls to try and get involved?
I'd say the odds are high.
Waz, don't let him in.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I do have the code, so.
If you see Tyler in the waiting room of this Zoom call, do not let him in. Or let him in and instantly mute him.
Yeah.
And then he can just look at us talking about what's going on with the Oilers. All right. So as we do every week, we start off by thanking our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant. Check them out on Instagram at Sherwood Ford _the Giant, or on Twitter at Sherwood Ford. Service, parts, new whip. Waz, you need a new whip? What are you driving these days?
I don't have a car yet.
Oh,
I'm trying to find one right now.
Sherwood Ford, we need to help Waz out. So that means now we need 5 Broncos.
Please.
Normal crew. Actually, you know what? You can have Tyler's Bronco. We're just 4 Broncos.
I'll take anything at this point. So,
looking outside my parking spot, still no Bronco. Sherwood Ford. Let's figure it out. Again, Sherwood Ford _ the Giant on Instagram. Sherwood Ford on Twitter. Nation Dan this week with the Giant question. What do you got for us?
Well, it's a tag team between you and I, Bag Milk, because breaking earlier today, Elliot Friedman had a little tidbit about players that want to come to Canada. Do you have the quote there?
I do, somewhere. No, I don't. I lost it. Basically, while I find it and revamp, it's they don't want to come to Canada.
Yes.
So here it is. A unique but valuable case could be newly minted Stanley Cup champion David Savard, because word is he's more willing than some of his peers to consider Canadian destinations. One GM said Thursday that he's hearing more and more from players that they prefer not to play in Canada. It's a real thing, he said, mentioning taxes, social media, and tighter pandemic restrictions. Dan?
So my Sherwood Ford Giant question of the day is, if you could change one thing within the control of the organization or the fans, what would you do to make Edmonton more enticing to free agents? Bag Milk?
I mean, here's the thing. We're going to get into the Larson thing, obviously, in a minute. And having him leave to an expansion team as a free agent when you have Connor and Leon beside you is upsetting. But we'll get to that. So how to make it more enticing? Show more pictures of the mountains in the pitch video. Like, I still need to see what that DVD is that they sent to Danny Heatley. Like, what's on there?
Oh, wow.
Did they push the bat around on 97th Street? Like, we need to know.
Wait, hold on. The bat may not have even been there.
That is true. That is very true. I don't remember when the bat got put in. So what's in there? Did they show them the Fantasyland suites? Like the car bedroom?
The truck, yeah.
You know, the wave pool? Who doesn't like a wave pool? I like a wave pool. Honestly, Dan, I don't know the answer to this question. How do you make it more desirable? I don't know. Winter sucks, but I don't think they really care as much as the stories made out about winter. Like, it blows, but like, it's 3 weeks where it's insane cold.
Plus, you're also sorry to cut you off. Like, you as an NHL player, you're traveling most of the time, anyways. So
yeah. Like, we're gonna get into the schedule, and there's a period in late in the year 2021 that is, where the Oilers are gone for the bulk of it. So I don't know the answer to the question, Dan. How do you get Edmonton to be more of a free agent destination? You build a winner, really, is what you got to like. Winning cures all, I think. And if the Oilers were competitive and making moves every year in the playoffs, that is, I think that would be enough. I think the rest wouldn't matter. Yes, the social media thing is a thing. People that tag players and shit, or like when the Oilers tweet something and the players tagged and they just go carving them, that doesn't help. So stop it. But in terms of actually getting better players to sign here, I think it's got to be about winning. No.
What about you, Was? What do you think?
I mean, I think winning does play a factor right now, but like also Edmonton, like as a whole, I think has improved a lot over the last couple of years. So it's tough to say unless you want to maybe give them like a room to themselves in the Marriott for like whenever they're here. I don't know, something interesting. So,
but at the same point too, it's like, look, last year Tyson Barrie signed here on a discount. He's talking to the Oilers about potentially re-signing again. That was a free agent that came here. Milan Lucic, and I know it didn't work out, but he was like one of the big dogs in 2016. He signed here on a long-term deal because he wanted to play with McDavid and blah, blah, blah. Like, is it as big of a thing, Rick, do you think, as it was back in the day? Or is this just, again, we got to yell about something?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not what it used to be. Obviously, you get out of the decade of darkness. You had a Connor, a Leon, a couple other guys that are here. It's completely different than what it was before. I still think there's a little bit of a rotten section inside of OEG, the company on its own. I think that probably affects some sort of communication, and that trickles down. And I'm sure some of that negativity gets towards the players. I understand how we're trying to correlate this to the Friedman thing and the fans and social media and stuff. I don't think it's as big of a part, but I do think it probably does play more than a little bit of a part. But at the end of the day, I think it's the organization itself is what needs to be selling themselves. And if they can't sell themselves, like we'll never know. But why did Adam leave? Like, is it some of the actual reasons, like the emotional parts of his father and his mother only coming here a couple times and whatnot? Is there something, a part of the organization that he just felt like, they don't really take care of this, that, or the other thing? We'll never really know, but I would prefer to hear a lot more of, that was a Class A organization. They did this, they did that, they did the other thing for me. And I know they have lacked in that area. Firsthand, like I just know these things, or that specific thing that, sometimes the organization doesn't take care of the players as well as they should. So I think if that fixes itself, that's probably the number one thing I'd put on it.
It's a fair point.
We're going to talk about Larson here in a minute. Dan, what's your thoughts?
My answer, I think, is it's twofold. So I think that the social media thing is a real issue. I do believe that Canadian fans, we're rabid. We love our hockey and we hold players accountable, and tagging players and all that kind of stuff. It happens, but I think it's an easy fix for the teams if they put in some more effort. I'm not just talking about the Oilers even, but if the teams put in more effort to show the impact that these players are having around the community, more videotapes of them going to Ronald McDonald House and helping out, or going to a children's hospital and helping out, women's shelters, all those things. What it does is it makes them Edmontonians, not necessarily just Edmonton Oilers. And it removes the perception that these guys just come in, play their hockey, and then walk away from the city kind of thing. And then therefore the criticism won't be as vitriol filled as it would be if it was just based on your on ice performance. That I've always believed that the teams that do the best are the teams that have their fan base behind them, regardless of the results. Win or lose, you're still an Edmonton Oilers fan, and win or lose, there's still Edmonton Oilers players, and they are to be, whilst maybe not treated the best in-house and are held accountable for their mistakes on the ice. When they leave the ice, we respect them as the people that are helping the city of Edmonton that they are. So I think it's a simple little tweak that I would like to see more Canadian teams do, where they just give more of a focus on the player and profiles of the player and the things and the impact that they're making around their city.
The thing that bothers me about the social media thing, I guess, is yes, Canadian fans are psychos about hockey, really. But that's what about, like, Boston is the same way,
Yep.
Philly is the same way.
But is it as big? Is it as big on social media though? Like, if I'm not mistaken, the Edmonton Oilers have one of the largest fan bases on social media out of any team in the world.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I mean, we're obviously speaking from our voice is obviously extremely gigantic voice, right? So some other fan bases can say whatever, but no one really pays attention to them. You really can't get away from us. And I don't think it's the criticism, the well-worded criticism, is something you would say to their face, or the when you word things properly. I don't think it is that. But I think it's while I slept last night, I try to come up with the most ridiculous quote unquote joke to make, on Twitter the next day. And he's kicking a dead horse and just never letting up on some things. Like we get it. You don't like this, but why do you keep shitting on it? Like, honestly, you wouldn't say this to anybody's face.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's not the fair criticism. That's fine. These guys understand that. But it's the incessant just taking a dump on the guy over and over and over and over and over again, and really not holding back at all either. Like, we're coming out there and ripping these guys for all sorts of stupid shit. And I understand a lot of the people who do the worst ripping, their voices should not be heard because they're idiots. But there's still a lot of people that just keep going. And I think that's what it is at the end of the day. It's like, we live in this mental health time now where we're supposed to be respecting this and helping, and, just helping everybody along with this thing. And then we turn our back on it because it's hockey, and we absolutely dump all over some of these guys.
Yeah.
I think blaming fans for anything when it comes to a professional, like, okay, to a point, I agree with Rick, but like,
because you can't get away from social media, man.
Like if the Oilers didn't have 3 playoff appearances in 15 years, the fans wouldn't be so quick to anger either. And as much as, I have a voice, you have a voice, we all do. If the organization put together a competent hockey team that can actually play and be competitive, then a lot of this noise goes away. Look at the season. Like,
that's the actual criticism, though. It's the excessive stuff, I think, is the issue.
But again, I still think a lot of that shit would go away if the Oilers were a perennial playoff team. Every year we know we're in. Every year we're going to be in the mix. I think that goes away.
We know we're in the mix right now. Don't you think don't you think that
sure, but like
this team was not automatically, but pretty dang close to being automatically in the playoffs? Therefore, shouldn't we give it, like, not we, because I think everybody here is pretty well spoken, but shouldn't some of those people kind of take the foot off the accelerator here and kind of like, okay, let's see what happens?
The problem also is that
sorry,
Waz. The problem also with the Oilers fans is that we know too much. We know the bottom 6 is not contributing at the level that they should. And to have have players come in that just do the same shit and just need Connor and Leon to drag them in until they build a team around those two guys. I think it's just nothing's going to change in terms of Oilers fans on social media. Give them a good team, one that can be competitive. Even when Connor and Leon are not on the ice, a lot of this shit's going to go away.
No, yeah, it's like I think Rick was saying, like, I mean, I feel like we're becoming perennial, like, where we're consistently making the playoffs for once finally. And I think people don't really see that. They just see, oh, we got swept in the first round. Oh, we lost in the bubble to Chicago, so things are not changing. It's like, oh, we had 2017. It feels like a lot of people forgot that even happened. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like where the team's at a little bit. I mean, sure, we should be a bit better, but, I mean, ultimately, it's not in our control.
No, exactly. It's not in the fans' control. So I'm always hesitant about blaming fans for when things go bad. It's like,
well, I think it's just because like people, there is that reputation that will pick out a scapegoat and kind of run them out of town, right? Like I think maybe Eberle, Talbot. There's been a few players over the years, obviously. So it's just there is that little reputation, but I think it's just a very small minority.
But there's also like that's also and I include myself in the mix. There's also like media that factor into that, when, and I'll take a shot at Mark Spector here right now. And I did it on Twitter. So if he saw it, he saw it. When he posts something saying, no matter how long or overpaid Zach Hyman is, you can't fucking complain because they're going for it. Like that doesn't help the situation. You're poking the bear, and whether he's doing that on purpose or he genuinely feels that way, I don't know, but like that's also not helping. There's a very combative relationship in this city between media, bloggers, fans, not always, there's a mix of it's in the range, there's shades of gray, but it's a weird mix here. I'm not well versed enough on other cities and their media to be able to say that, but like if you're in Boston and Joe Haggerty says something you don't like, is it just like you have the back knowledge in your brain to just carve him up with details and stats? Do they do that there? I have no idea. But here they do.
But the Bruins are also fourth in line.
True.
That's
right?
the
The
that
Red
and
Sox,
so
Patriots, and
100%.
Celtics are all miles ahead of them.
100%.
But what
100%.
Bag Milk what the service it does do to Bag Milk's point is they don't have anybody behind them to carry the bag or in front of them to carry the bag in Canada. You are the number one you are the number one sports story in Ottawa. You're the number one sports story in Winnipeg. You're the number one sports story in Edmonton. So
Winnipeg doesn't have newspapers. They're still doing Pony Express and faxing things around. So I don't know.
of course, what was I thinking? But you're the number one story in Iqaluit. You know, like that's like hockey reigns supreme, and so there is a certain amount of merit to that. But I think that also comes back to my point of giving these players more than just an identity of the trade that brought them in or the contract that brought them in, and then the play on the ice. If they're leaving town and and Mark Spector is able to write an article about the 1,500 visits that Adam Larson made over his 6 years in Edmonton, you know, like that kind of stuff is just, it's easier to write about than having him drag him out of town like Steve Simmons did with Phil Kessel.
It's not retroactive though, right? So if he reads that and like, oh, I feel good about that, it doesn't take away 3 years ago on a Wednesday when he was just trying to look at whatever on Twitter and found everything. I think if everyone just typed the way they spoke face to face, that wouldn't be an issue anymore. But I don't think that's just not a thing. We take it from a 3 to a 33 instead. And I don't really agree with it, but it is what it is, and I don't see it ever changing.
If you have ideas on what the Canadian cities could do to try and soften create a soft landing spot for some free agents, hit us up. ON Radio Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. We want to know your ideas. Since we're talking about free agents leaving, how could we not talk about our boy Adam Larson? Dan talked about it. He, for the last 5 years he was here, was the 1-for-1 guy. And it wasn't his fault. He had no part of that trade apart from being the return for Taylor Hall. And yet he probably had to hear about it way more often than he should have. Good player. I think a lot of people liked Adam Larson as a player, but didn't like the trade. But unfortunately, it wasn't his fault, but it was his problem. What do you make about Adam Larson leaving? Because I want to get into some quotes from Ken Holland's press conference as well. But first, just thoughts on Larson leaving.
Well, for me, the first immediate kind of weird thought, and again, it's, maybe I'm too deep into the social media stuff, but you didn't see a lot of messages saying goodbye to Adam from his teammates like you do for other guys.
I just don't think the Oilers do that though.
Who's one that you saw though? Who's a comparable? Like, I don't think Jones got anything, but I get it. Yeah. I don't know if Benning really got anything. I don't really know if that's
I just don't know. I don't know if they actually do that.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that for Eberle as well. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think I saw any of that.
But yeah, to your point, Bag Milk, I think you put it out there, and Gregor asked the question too, and it begs a question to the organization of, what's going wrong here, where a guy 1 year is at his exit interview touting the city and loving everything about it. Now, obviously, Larson has some extenuating circumstances there that, the death of his father is something that has to be looming in his head, whether that factored into the decision or not. But, you see Caleb Jones, who was in a pretty good spot with this team and didn't want to be here anymore. These little, I don't want to be here's are kind of piling up a lot when you're supposed to have, you have the best player in the game playing for you, arguably the third or fourth best player in the game playing for you. And guys still don't want to sign here, even though they've already played with these guys and know how easy that can be and how easy that life can be.
See, I have a hard time comparing Jones and Larson though, because Jones, I can understand why you wouldn't want to be here. He just wasn't playing, eventually a guy wants to play, and there's probably more to it, Dan. I'm completely with you. But like with Larson, that one's so confusing because, like you said, I watched his year-end press conference again yesterday, and he talked about the city, the fans, the team, the teammates, all that stuff. Holland referred to him as part of the core. So it's surprising what happened between then and the time he signed in Seattle. Like, what happened there? Because it doesn't make sense to me. And I don't expect players to be 100% forthcoming in those press conferences, I don't expect any of them to tell the truth. It's like, to Rick's point, people to get really mad at Ken Holland for not saying anything in a press conference. What GM? Oh, I mean, Mac T did. Mac T said way too much, arguably. But outside of Mac T, which GMs just shoot from the hip and say exactly what's on their mind? They don't do that. They've all got their style of tap dancing and lawyeriness, is what I call it, where they don't answer questions, and that's just Holland's flavor. But I did believe Adam Larson that he liked being here. So what happened? Is it part of it that was he slighted by the idea of being like, oh, no, we're going to sign you, but you got to wait till after expansion? Like, I don't know. Did he not feel prioritized? That I'm guessing. I have no idea. Is it part of it that he was tired of being the 1-for-1 guy in the city? I don't know. It's weird. But now Oilers have a problem. Waz, what do you think?
I mean, obviously there's a lot of question marks now, because like I was kind of very confused, sad, and a little angry that he left, because I really liked Adam Larson. I liked what he was turning into. I had like, why would he leave? Like, I was like, yeah, like you were saying, like, what happened between the exit interview and now? Was it negotiations with the contract? Like, apparently there was a few tables on the offers on the table for Larson.
Yep.
So now the question is, how do we replace him? Because personally, I'm not really a big fan of just having the current defense core. I'm like, we need to go into the market and look for a defenseman.
And I agree with you. So look, we're gonna get to that in a minute, but just sticking with Adam Larson here. So a couple of quotes from the Holland press conference when asked about it. Let me back up here a little bit. Holland said, we looked at the marketplace, what the marketplace was for a type of player he was in recent contracts. There was about 10, 12 comparables. I made an offer in March, talked through April, and sometime in April, we were told they wanted to shut it down to the end of the season. All makes sense. A lot of players do that going into the playoffs. Not a big deal. I thought we were very close to a deal a month ago. As time went by, I was told that Adam really wanted to make sure of his decision and wanted to know what his options were. Then I made 3, 4, 5 different offers through June and July. About a week ago, I went to Larson's agent and said, if Adam wanted to explore the market, he could talk to other teams and see what his options were, in the hopes that his best option was here in Edmonton. Woke up to a text that Adam had signed a deal in Seattle. So again, we're just guessing. You got to think Holland was surprised by this.
No,
the
he
way he said
was.
it seemed like they were going to get a deal done a couple of times. He's got to think, where the fuck did this go wrong?
I wonder how many teams he talked to. Did he just talk to Seattle? Like, obviously, if he was allowed, if we okayed it, if we said, hey, you can go talk to whoever. Interesting. I must have missed that yesterday. But I thought, he was in the window for UFAs talking to the new team. So maybe that's just what it was. I don't see it being, what, the way his last interview, when you look on it in hindsight now, could have been his exit, could have been, hey, listen, I loved every minute here and said all these good things. And it's kind of, he wanted to, make sure it was a clean break on the way out the door and said, hey, thank you for everything. I think just want to move on and blah, blah, blah. Right. I mean, if you look at what he said, you could easily use that exact quote, put it after the signing, and it would all meld together. Right.
I guess it's just weird because, I mean, in the post-season presser, he says, I want to be an Oiler, blah, blah, blah. Like, and again, I don't buy everything people say into a microphone to the media. Of course, that's ridiculous. It's just, I guess it hurts in the sense that, first of all, like Waz says, makes a massive hole on the defense on this team. He was one of the league's better shutdown defensemen, and now that's a hole, and there is nobody there. We're going to get to that. But to leave for the same money to an expansion team, I'm like, man, he really wanted to get out of here.
Well, maybe I was reading too much into the press conference, and I don't necessarily want to do that because it's nice to actually get some information from Ken Holland, but that isn't about the Detroit Red Wings. But
by the way, no Red Wings mentions in yesterday's press conference. Everybody was surprised by that one. Go ahead, Dave.
But for me, it was the mention that he said that he put different contracts on the table 4 or 5 times. And so how low was he starting to have gotten up to the point where he was at the same number as Seattle? And maybe that's where the issue was.
No, he had, I think it was a term thing. I think he said he had a 3, a 4, and a 5-year term contract.
Yeah, there was
on the
different
table.
term offers later.
So I don't think it was.
Okay.
I don't think it's like he lowballed him in money.
Got it.
He gave him options in terms
Okay.
of term.
I missed that little bit, and that's why I didn't want to do the overanalyzing of his statement, because obviously I wasn't listening at that point. But yeah, it sucks. It really sucks. But maybe they can sign Dougie Hamilton for just under $7 million and not have a problem there.
Well, that's another thing, because Dan and I have been pushing for Dougie Hamilton for a while, but also Holland says we will not be whale hunting, or what did he say? We will not be in the big game hunting on defense.
However,
not
Frank-
$7 to $8 million deal.
Yes, that's right.
Frank called us the dark horse, and the dark
That's
horse
right.
never shines a light on himself. So if you're the dark horse, of course you're going to say that.
So if you're missing
Rick,
that,
I love
Frank
you.
Saravalli, Nation Network insider, daily face-off expansion draft ruiner.
Waz of the NHL.
So Saravalli said the Oilers are a dark horse for Dougie Hamilton. Maybe comes in cheaper than we think. Maybe, fingers crossed.
6.9. Somebody
I
said
hope
that.
so.
Yeah,
That'd be nice.
Okay, so back to Larson for a sec. Obviously, he's gone. Big hole. Back to Ken Holland. He says, I'm in communication with Tyson Barrie. I had an offer on the table for Adam Larson. Well, obviously we knew that. Our expectations are that Evan Bouchard will be an everyday player like that. Excellent. So maybe he can take some of those minutes. I need to do something on defense. So, well, I do this ad read, gentlemen. My question that I'm going to ask you as soon as I'm done. If our right side is Bear, Barrie, Bouchard, the order doesn't matter. Is that enough, or does it need to be more? But first, we'll say shout out to Bixler's Jewelers. They are licensed. They are wonderful. And like Dan will tell you in a minute, they are America's first jeweler. 1785. Established in 1785 at a small Pennsylvania workshop. Centuries now they've been working on this day.
Just a few centuries, and they decided to partner up with us. As you mentioned, Bag Milk, they are the official jeweler of the NHL. They have other licensed agreements as well, but for a limited time, and when I say limited, I mean 7 more days. 7 days? How many more days are there in July? 8 more
8
days.
days.
8 more days for you to use the code Bixler's Nation 10 to get 10% off of your officially licensed jewelry of the hockey variety. And so yeah, Bixler Nation 10% off your order. Get that in before the end of the month, because that's when the deal wraps up.
Waz, I think he'd look real nice with an Oilers ring, buddy.
Really?
Absolutely. Imagine maybe like a 4-knuckle Oilers ring on Waz.
Actually, I like
real
that
sharp.
idea. Yeah.
That would look
Yeah.
Let's do
real
it.
sharp.
Let's do
All
it.
their jewelry, beautiful stuff.
So Adam Larson gone. Now what do we do? Before the ad read, I said Bear, Bouchard, Barrie, any order, doesn't matter. Is that good enough on the right side? New and improved, Tyler, I start with you.
On paper, no. It looks very scary. But then again, I'm kind of a firm believer that these players can improve over the course of the season and prove us wrong. But still, I think we need to try to get someone that's a little bit more experienced and stronger.
Rick?
I think if you'd have to bring in another second line left-handed shot to play with. One to go with Barrie, one to go with Bouchard. I don't like that idea. I would move on from Barrie. I think we need a player to replace Larson's style, and that's what you kind of go after. And as much as I love the idea of bringing in like a Dougie, maybe we can find somebody at half the cost and use the rest of that for some help up front.
Dan?
Or in the net for that matter.
We'll get there too. Dan?
I'm kind of at the point where I think Ken Holland is doing everything against the grain to try and prove a point. And so I think Tyson Barrie is going to be our right defenseman. And it's one of those things. It's like you hope that Evan Bouchard can really step it up and all of a sudden become Chris Pronger, because the defensive liabilities on that right side are many.
Well, and another interesting wrinkle, again, we're going back to Frank Saravalli, dailyfaceoff.com. If we're talking about the right side, how can I not look at Frank's new trade targets that just got loaded up today? Ethan Bear makes an appearance at number 29. He says the scoop is Edmonton's preference probably is not to trade Bear, who is still finding his footing in the NHL, but they may have to consider the possibility depending on the other balls GM Ken Holland is juggling on the back end. The trouble for Bear, like a lot of young players, has been consistency. He is a gifted player. The knock on him is his commitment to being in top end condition. I'm an Ethan Bear fan. I know everybody here is an Ethan Bear fan. Trading him would be a rough one.
I don't think they do trade him. I think this is just a lot of people making that up. However, I do know for a fact that he came in less than great condition last year. That's kind of what if you remember last year, he didn't start off so great. Started to get his game together, hurt himself, started to get his game together, and, a couple of bad mistakes at the end, whatever. So I think if he gets his physical condition and he comes in peak, then he'll be okay. That will ease the minds of everybody in the suits watching from the seats. If he doesn't, I think it's a valid question about a player. Like, I mean, if you're 24 years old and you're not coming in peak condition, that's a valid question. And I would kind of understand that somebody would want to move on from a player like that because you're about to have to give him more money again right away. So I really hope he just comes, he's got that part figured out and he comes in peak physical condition and we can sweep this away, because Holland did say yesterday he needs young players, and Bear was one of them, to step up and take some of these roles because he can't replace them all with trades or UFA players. So the fact he mentioned Ethan Bear's name 2 or 3 times in the presser, I think gave me that sense that they don't really want to trade him. But if he forces their hand by not coming in shape, I think there's a valid concern there from the organization.
Dan?
Sorry, my mute button. Yeah, I don't know. Like the right side, like, I don't know. I don't see him. Far be it from me to question Frank Saravalli, but I don't think that there's an opportunity to make a trade here anymore. Not for the foreseeable future, just because the replacement level player is Chris Russell on his off wing. Like, I don't know. We're not dealing from a position of power anymore.
He said juggling players, right? So I think he would move someone in and therefore move them out. I don't see him moving somebody out without a plan.
I'm just throwing names out here, by the way, if you're listening to this and you're going to get mad at me and yell at your car radio or whatever the fuck you're listening.
Official rumors, according to Bag Milk.
That's right. Sources say. No, so here's the thought I've been reading it on Twitter. And again, I don't like the idea, but this is what it is. It's okay. Maybe they sign Tyson Barrie. They bring him back, right? Okay, so then you've got Bear, Barrie, Bouchard on the right side. I like the alliteration. Don't necessarily like the makeup. Now, what I've been reading is in that scenario, you could then trade Bear for help getting the 3C and sign a guy like Goodbranson, who's a shutdown guy. Again, I don't like it. I don't like Eric Goodbranson at all. However, that is a name that I've seen circling. I know Stauffer's also been teasing that name on his show. So that's the kind of thing that I would imagine Frank's talking about when we're juggling players here. Again, I don't like it, but that's just what I've saw cruising the old interwebs as we were preparing for the podcast. Does that make more sense to you, Dan?
Yes, but no.
Yes.
Like you said, it's a terrifying proposition. To me, the defense with Duncan Keith was better when you had Adam Larson on the other side of him.
Yep.
That was the issue for me, was that pairing is what makes me more comfortable with the Duncan Keith move in itself. So you have to go out and find a defensively sound guy to pair with Keith now. And I don't know if that guy exists as a UFA. So then you're looking at a trade. I don't know. For Holland to have responded to the question, what does this do to your plans? And he just says you have to make a new plan. That's pretty scary to me in 2021. I know I understand that that's the reality, and I get that that's where it just happened that way. But I would hope that my team has some contingency plans in place when you're exposing a guy like Adam Larson with the knowledge that Seattle could take him and not have even had a negotiation done with him yet and look to sign him that way. So I don't know. And also Oh, geez, I just drooled at the thought. I'm going full mouth breather here.
Wow.
But
Okay, Dan.
Wow.
Dan's very fired up about defense here.
it's goofy to me that Ken Holland on one hand can say, I opened up the door for Adam Larsson to go to talk to everybody, and then also not have a plan for Adam Larsson to no longer be a part of the team, and think that was just I love him, so I'm going to set him free and he's going to come back to me kind of scenario, as if Ken Holland's never been scorned by somebody.
That was only a week ago, right? He said about a week ago.
Yeah, but as soon as you make that available, though, you have to start planning for the chance that he's not going to want to play with you anymore.
No, and that's fair. But I think he probably did at that point. What he said yesterday was probably the exact same thing. It's like, well, you got to come up with a new plan.
What's scary to me?
I think that surprised everybody. That's terrifying that he left.
And apparently the Oilers were in on this Ristolainen transaction that happened just before we got on the air.
Yeah.
And we dodged a bullet there a bit, at least according to the fancy numbers about Ristolainen. So that to me sounds like that was possibly their A1 option, and so that's scary to me.
We'll see what happens. Like, a guy who is a free agent that would probably be actually getting quite a few suitors at this point would be a guy like David Savard. He's a 30-year-old right shot defenseman that is a shutdown guy. I imagine Ken Holland would be kicking a guy like that's tires as well, especially if the plan is to, if you're going to walk away from Ethan Bear, you better have a plan, like Dan said.
That's scary though. A UFA guy like that, that's scary because we're already overturned, and I get the terming guy.
And he just finished in Tampa.
Yeah, so I mean, that's, as much as that's a name, I think you got to try and find a quieter player to get him at a cheaper price.
But that's what it's going to be. It's going to be like a David Savard. It's going to be the Eric Goodbranson. They're not going to.
You might be able to go trade for like a player who has 1 year left on his contract or something like that. The Josh Manson type.
That would be dope. I would like that, but what the Oilers actually have available to trade is very limited, I think, personally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's going to make trading for a quality player going to be much more significantly difficult. I like the first round pick. Yesterday, Ken Holland said, I will not trade this for a rental, but I will look at a hockey trade. Smart.
Yep.
I like hearing that. What is the value of a 20th/19th overall pick? Thanks for cheating, Arizona. What is the value of that? Could you get a Manson type for a first plus something? I don't know. I have no idea.
I think with this draft, you have to look at it like it's a second round pick almost.
I guess. I mean, St. Louis just dealt their second round pick for Buchnevich, so that just happened.
Just now?
Yeah, Buchnevich to St. Louis for Blythe and a second in 2022.
See, like,
there you go.
That's
Here comes Tyler. Tyler's going to be in the waiting room right away.
Yeah. Tyler's been a Buchnevich guy for a long time.
I already broke the news, Tyler. Sorry.
Yeah, Buchnevich. Yeah, all the insiders are in here now. So Buchnevich, St. Louis for Blaze, and a second in 2022. Oilers can't even trade the second in 2022.
I was just going to say.
It's tied
I think we can make some. I think we end up moving our. Like, I don't think either one of the goalies are there at 19 or 20, whatever you want to call it today. So I do think we end up making a trade and moving back and looking at a 2 and a 3 if we can move 19 for a second and a third, and then we can get involved in some of this stuff for some of these defensemen. But I think we need to make that trade first.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how, like, the draft's coming up. It's 2:00 as we're recording here today on a Friday afternoon. The draft coverage starts at 6 p.m. Mountain, so we will see. Skipping ahead a little bit because we got to move things along. Although Waz isn't going to cut us off today. You hear that, Tyler? You're probably not even listening to this right now, are you? I'm not committed, this guy.
Not right now.
I'm not committed. First, before we move on to the other big news story of the week here at Edmonton, I want to shout out our friends at Cornerstone Insurance. For 90 years, for 90 years, Cornerstone Insurance has been a family and employee-owned business here in Edmonton, and they've got all these services that you could ever hope and dream of in terms of your insurance. Auto, residential, commercial, life insurance, whatever you need, they're there for you. Need a claim? Have a claim to submit? No problem. And on the left-hand side of your screen, there's a Citizens of the Nation tab. Click on that. Get yourself a little discount. CornerstoneINS.ca. CornerstoneINS.ca. Why not save yourself some money? All right. Big news story coming this week. Zach Hyman looks like, barring some kind of disaster, Zach Hyman is going to be an Edmonton Oiler. Now, what does it look like? That's where things get a little bit more interesting. Currently, the rumor has it, according to many of the insiders, Jason Gregor as well, Oilers potentially looking at a sign-in trade for an 8th year for Zach Hyman to bring the cap hit down. Now, 2 parts. We're going to do this in 2 parts, boys, because we'll just end up start screaming at each other. And while I do like that, I do want to know your honest answers. Zach Hyman, first of all, the player coming to Edmonton in free agency. Let's just talk about the player first. Are you excited about Zach Hyman?
I think that type of addition, I think it's a good addition. I think it'll help out the top 6, kind of round it out, give that extra forward in there. The man also, he's very good on the PK. I think that's somewhere else that we also need. So bringing that player in, I think is a good thing.
Waz, you were going to go. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm excited to bring him in. I mean, the contract's interesting, but other than that, I'm excited. I was watching some highlights of him. He's like pretty good in front of the net. Like you said, he can throw around the body as well. He's good in the community, which is awesome as well. We love that here in Edmonton, honestly. So I'm excited to see what he brings. He seems kind of versatile. It's just, 8 years is originally I thought like this could be like Milan Lucic 2.0 with how the contract was looking. But the difference is, I mean, Zach Hyman doesn't have stone hands like Milan Lucic. But yeah, the lower we pay him, the better, I guess.
We're going to talk contract in a second. First, Dan, I just want to know your thoughts. Zach Hyman, just in general, the player.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Zach Hyman doubles his point totals career-wise this year with the Edmonton Oilers. And
so career high currently of 21 goals and 41 points as a career high.
I'm saying 82 for sure.
But was that not in the reduced season? Like the one where we lost to Chicago, so the reduced amount of games. So if you take his average points and extend it, it was last year.
His career high was in no, he was actually hurt in the shortened season that got cut off by COVID. So he only played 51 of 71 games there. It was the year before he played 71 of 82 and got 21 goals, 20 assists for 41 points. So that was 2018-19.
But if you do put out last year's numbers of 33 points in 43 games and extrapolate on that, it's about 70. So I could say 82 as a pretty good watermark for him. And yeah, he's a kind of guy that's going to come in. He'll bring a little bit of defensive responsibility to McDavid's line, so McDavid can sneak up there and play that. Does that sound eerily similar to when we had Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on McDavid's wing? And then I guess the hope is that Hyman has a little bit more maybe finish in the net area than a Nugent-Hopkins had, and so that allows Nuge to slide down with Draisaitl and become an absolute stalwart 1-2 punch of lines for the Edmonton Oilers.
First of all, I got to defend Nuge here for a second.
Absolutely.
Last year was just a bad year.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every other year before that, the 4 previous years before last year, he was outscoring Zach Hyman and probably would again. However, just to touch on Zach Hyman, I'm excited about it. I think that the more I read about how people in Toronto are just desperately going to miss him, that makes me happy. I think when you've got guys who work their ass off, become fan favorites, they've got skill, and they're coming to your team, that's good news. Zach Hyman is going to help. He's going to help now. He's going to help for a few years. I don't think he's going to fall off like Milan Lucic did. At least not right away. I mean, we're talking Lucic fell off in year 2 of that 7-year contract.
He fell really fast. He fell really fast.
Off a cliff. It's like he did the old Wile E. Coyote thing. You saw the and then
feet
the way
moving,
he went,
but there's the feet moving, but there's nothing underneath them, and then just drops.
Here's something that I want to read from Steve Dangle from Sportsnet. Oilers fans, Zach Hyman is a gem, truly. The Leafs organization has adored him and held him up as a standard since he was in the AHL. He's a smart, no-quit warrior, a penalty killer, capable net front guy, and has scored at a 33 and 28 goal pace each of the last 2 seasons. The contract is whatever it is, but there's a reason he's so coveted. He's had his share of injuries, but he keeps bouncing back whenever he's doubted. His best goal-scoring output came after knee surgery. He's a monster, and he's a children's book author. Happy for Zach. So it looks like we're getting a good player, a good person, And when you're talking about culture in the dressing room, buzzword, blah, 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 having a guy like that can only improve things. Now let's talk about the contract itself. 7-8 years, way too fucking long. It's too long. However, you're going to bring the contract number down. I don't like the idea of him getting paid more than Nugent Hopkins, who's a more productive player, but that is what it is. I'm not going to compare apples to oranges on that one. The reality is the contract at 7 or 8 years is just too long. You bring the cap hit down. I'm with it. I get it. You're overpaying because he's a free agent. But I think on this one, this is signed specifically for right now and trying to win right now. But I could see us on this podcast having a Zach Hyman gold draft in year 6-7 of that contract, but I'm not going to worry about that today. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to worry about what Zach Hyman can bring to the team now. I'm going to be excited about him playing with Connor, fishing out pucks, or Leon, whichever, it doesn't matter to me. Fishing out pucks, dishing to him, throwing the body, killing some PK. Because you know what? The Oilers are also going to need some penalty killers. Jujhar Khaira is not likely to return. He might, but unlikely to return. So they need guys who can kill penalties. And if one of those guys is a guy like Zach Hyman, and maybe he gets us a shorty or two here every now and then, great. If he's involved in the community, he's at the Stollery with kids, giving books to people or whatever he does in the community, awesome. If he's a good guy in the room, awesome. Contract, too long. It's just too long. But it's about getting that AAV lower, especially in the flat cap. And if you're going to think about it on the positive side, hopefully by year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it is, we'll be talking about a cap that does not look like the one it does today. That's my spiel on the contract. Rick, you're up.
Yeah, I agree. I get it. 8 is long and I don't like it, but I also realize that in our adult life, for you and me, we have not really been in this win now type of situation. So
we fucking haven't done anything like
this. So this is very, very new for us. So I get it. We got to win right now. So I understand throwing your chips in right now. I do agree with you though. Like I think the first 4 years we can green check mark that for right now. Years 5 and 6 as of today are going to be a gray area for me, and years 7 and 8 from today, I think I'm a little bit worried about. But at the same time, you're right. I do believe the salary cap is going to actually almost skyrocket between now and year 5, hopefully. Year 6 of his contract, to the point where it could be even more than $10 million more right now. So I think the percentage of the cap is going to shrink enough that contract, as long as he can play third line at that time, and then eventually if he's here for year 8 and 7, fourth line, if he can still fill a role, I think it'll be okay in terms of percentage of cap. So I get it. I understand that the 8 years is terrifying. I do think it's kind of what you have to do to try and win right now. And it's a gamble, but I want to win right now, and we have about 4 years, 5 years. And if he's gonna help, then if we get 3 cups out of it, he can Lucic himself in years 6, 7, and 8. I really don't give a shit.
Dan, what about the contract?
Yeah, for me, I'm starting to kind of think shift my mentality to this offseason. We have 4 years to worry about right now, and it's time to get those W's. It's time to get those cup runs, and Zach Hyman does that for us. Does he help us in 5, 6, 7, 8 of that contract? Who knows? You never know if we have a new GM in here and he's able to ship that contract out, no problem, like some GMs apparently are able to, unlike Kenny H. But as of right now, trying to win 2021, 2022, and Zach Hyman helps us with that. So I'm happy with it. The number getting lower helps us with other transactions. That's the main focus after that. And if that means more term, but it also sounds like that is not really going to be a deal that's feasible, because apparently Toronto wants a 2nd round pick, which we don't have available.
Please do not give a 2nd round pick for $375,000.
We're going to talk about this in 1 sec. Waz, I just want to get your take on the 7-8 years first.
Yeah, just like kind of how you guys said, I'm kind of more focused on the first 4 years, not what's going to happen in like 2027, right? Like as long as we can go on like a few better cup runs here, maybe getting to the 3rd round, eventually a Stanley Cup in these next 4 to 5 years, that'd be great. That's all I want to see. And if he can produce and stay healthy, perfect.
So now let's talk about this potential sign and trade with Toronto. I am very, very against this. I hate the idea of giving up an asset just to get a guy who's the extra year of a guy who's going to sign here anyway.
What
Just
asset though?
wait.
Like, what if it's a 6th? Are you
Then I
upset
don't.
if
Then
it's
I
a
don't
6th?
really. I don't
Okay,
care. But like,
okay.
I get
Yeah.
why Toronto's asking for this. I get why you ask, but if it comes anywhere, again, you can't trade the second or the third. It's tied up in the keeps, so it doesn't matter. But like, if it comes close to that, man, I got a problem with it because he's going to sign here. Just wait 5 days, and if the cap hit is higher by 400 grand, who cares? It sucks, but
Yep.
it is what it is. I don't need a sign and trade for that extra 400 grand, especially if it comes anywhere close to what Toronto asked. If it's a 6th, who gives a shit? I mean, I know some people get fired up about 6th round picks, but look at the reality of the 6th round pick making the NHL. Although to be fair, Ethan Bear was a 5th round pick. So anyway,
encourage those haters to track that player for you and let you know how that Toronto draft pick in the 6th round.
You do the prospect report for Oilers Nation during the season, and there's a lot of ghosts on those lists that they disappear and we forget they were ever around.
That's exactly it. That's what I was going to say. Is that like every year we don't qualify people, and even me watching their numbers all year, I'm sometimes like, oh, that guy seemed like he had a good season in the NCAA, but they know the trajectory and we don't. So it's I mean, if you're paying anything above a 2 or a 3, you're probably pretty frustrated with that. But the nice thing is Kenny Holland has worked himself into a corner, and also the league as well. We lost our 3rd round pick this year because James Neal was allegedly going to score 20 goals in a.
Oilers just like get kicked in the balls over and over again with fucking
McClellan,
draft picks.
then
McClellan
Shea,
3rd, Chiarelli 2nd. Oh. Both of those guys were fired, and yet we had to compensate them. Like, it's just
and the rules changed.
I was just going to say
year.
that's the most frustrating part is that the rule then changed. But
the rule changed before they got our damn pick.
Yeah. But so it's if you're muffling over a 4th or 5th or 6th round pick, I hope you have a good pick there that you really wanted to see happen. but it's not. It doesn't make sense for Ken Holland because he can literally answer the question, "Did you expect me to get him for free?" with yes, we did. So it's you got to make this transaction make sense if you're Ken Holland, and if it doesn't, you don't deal with Toronto.
And I think there's no real fear in Toronto matching the contract, so that's just another reason not to.
Just wait. If they're gonna stick on the 2nd or whatever it is, just wait 6 days, 5 days, whatever it is now.
Because if you heard him talk yesterday, like what's his face out of Toronto. They're on he's not making any real additions to his team. He thinks his team is great and somehow they're going to pull it together and win it all this year. So I think he was adamant that this team is good. I think they are what I think they are type of a situation.
But they're going to be going back into that Atlantic division that is spicy.
Hey, they couldn't get past Montreal last year in the playoffs, man. Like, I know obviously us and whatever, but there's some, if that team was in Edmonton and Holland said the same thing, he'd be lit up and down. Like there's no chance. I think they need some additions out there. They need to move on from him. So I think there's no real fear in them re-signing him. So there's no point in moving anything more than a 6th.
Yeah, just if they're not wanting to play, just wait. Zach Hyman will be here, and you know what? We'll all be excited. If you're listening to this now and you're worried about the term, I am too. Let's talk about that 4 years from now. Because like I said, we will have a Zach Hyman goal draft on this podcast, just like we did for Milan Lucic. If things fall apart in the interim, I'm really looking forward to the honeymoon phase. That's always the best when a new toy shows up and you hug them and you feel real nice inside. It's like, oh, Zach Hyman, you look so good in Oilers jersey. Let's enjoy that part of this.
All those quotes of how excited he is to play with Connor McDavid.
Yes. Let's enjoy that part. Let's enjoy the honeymoon.
A step up from his old line mates.
Yeah, those fucking schlubs over there in Toronto,
He gets to play with future Hockey Hall of Famer Duncan Keith.
Exactly.
I did love the people that said that we shouldn't make a trade with Toronto because they're our rivals.
Would you not consider in that same context? Then would you not consider every team our rival?
I guess, yeah.
If you're using, I don't know. There's probably a little bit to be said about a couple Canadian teams being a little bit higher than the majority of the American teams. So maybe it's 3 or 4 Canadian teams and 2 American teams that kind of sit in that rival stance. And I kind of understand that thinking, but at the end of the day, I think you have to, like, if it's going to improve your team, you have to make the move. I mean, I wouldn't give them too much, but in this situation where you're going to take from them, I think I'm more okay with it.
Interesting that we're all excited about Hyman. Everybody is. So if you say that I'm overly negative and you're tweeting at me that I'm overly negative about Zach Hyman, listen to this. I'm not. I'll worry about the contract later. Other things that happened with the Oilers. Holland said yesterday he is not extending qualifying offers to Jujhar Khaira or Dominic Cahoon. I wasn't expecting Dominic Cahoon to come back, to be honest, but Jujhar, man, that hurts.
Yeah.
If you've listened to Oilers Nation Radio for any length of time, you know how big of a Jujhar guy I am. Love the hammer. Love what he does. When he is on his game, he is an excellent player. But I guess the problem is a little streaky, you know. And
he did say he won't. He said he won't give him a qualifying offer. So there is an opportunity.
That's right. So the qualifying offer would have been 1.3 million. There is an opportunity for them to sign him at less than that. So that's not to say that Jujhar's gone. It's just maybe unlikely.
I know Rick Dollywall was saying that we're not qualifying him, right? So
yeah.
Well, Holland said it.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is, though, is I think
directly.
He will look at this lineup, and I don't think you're bringing in a lot of guys who can play on the PK. And I think you could probably get them at 2 years, 800, 900 grand. And I think that as a 13, 14, or 12, that fourth left winger, and somebody who can kill penalties, somebody who has a little bit of grit and whatnot, and he likes his style in the playoffs. If I was running the team, would find a way to keep him around for about 2 years.
Hey man, you don't got to sell Jujhar Khaira to me. I love the guy. It's going to bum me out if he actually does leave. And again, just because he's not qualified doesn't mean that the Oilers can't retain him, right? Like last year, there was the story of Andreas Athanasiou. They didn't qualify him at 3, but they did offer him a contract. He just went to LA instead. So it could happen. Jujhar could be back. I mean, our beard per 60 drops significantly with Larson already gone. And if Jujhar leaves, come on.
Keith, I think Keith can grow a pretty decent one though. So,
well, good. Thankfully, because we need something here. The summer of rage is just going to get crazier. If we lose our beard strength and our Swedish all abs team, good Lord. Broberg better be doing sit-ups right now. Probably is too. Guys, probably.
I think Lageson's feeling right now. Lageson's got some big shoes to fill.
No, buddy. You better be doing some squats right now too, buddy. Good Lord. Next up, Mike Smith. Last week, we yelled at each other about Mike Smith and whether or not he should get a 2-year extension. Well, he did. He is. $2.2 million per season for 2 years, so 4.4 total. I personally, again, I maintain I don't understand the need for the second year on a 40-year-old goaltender, but it is what it is. It's not like a huge deal. I just don't understand the point of it. You could be like, well, I don't want to negotiate next summer. Mike Smith, you're 40. But I don't want to do this again next summer. Mike Smith, you're 40. This is a pro sport. Love ya. Welcome you back. Only 1-year deal. Moot point, because he's got 2. Dan, your thoughts?
I'm #annoyed. It's just goofy. It's just not good management of your team. And this one, I talked about how it's, this is the 4-year window now. And Mike Smith shouldn't be a part of that, outside of 1 more year to see if he can catch lightning in a bottle again at age 40. But, here we are. He's our 1A goaltender right now. And it's either Mikko Koskinen or somebody. But has anybody heard Ken Holland even mention that he's looking for a goalie yet?
No,
because I haven't. I sure haven't.
Which concerns me.
That's terrifying to me.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of the same duo again. Like if
Stalock.
You know what? If it's Smith and Stalock, they could buy out Koskinen and have all 3 on the books for under $5 million. It wouldn't be the worst thing of all time. But again, I don't think that's the upgrade you need. If it's Mike Smith for 2 years, my preference would be to go get a younger guy who can establish himself and stick for a minute. And if that's Mike Smith's next year as your backup at $2 million, you're okay with that.
Yep.
But you're also banking on a 4-year-old's body to perform the way you need a goaltender's body to, and that's risky.
Well, and Rick, and a guy that likes the net. a guy that loves the net.
Yes.
That was what I was going to add in there.
Yep.
Right. He doesn't
Absolutely
like
does.
sitting out. So
And
that's a weird backup position.
it's
To
just
be
such
in.
a gamble, right? So
It's a gamble. The
It is a
second year to me
gamble.
is unnecessary.
it,
But
it definitely
sorry, go
annoyed
ahead.
me when Rick, when Detroit just picked up Alex however you pronounce his name yesterday for like such
Jelkovic.
it was so cheap too. It was like, why
Yeah.
couldn't we go after that? Why couldn't we make a deal like that happen?
Because we don't have
Well,
that. We don't have that third round pick.
Whoa.
And to be fair, we didn't have like a Bernier either. I'm sure we could have figured out something. It obviously it would have looked a little bit different coming from us, but
we also had the opportunity to pick him up on waivers last year, even
Yeah.
after Carolina screwed us over on the
Like,
Forsberg
how
thing.
did that not happen?
everybody had a chance to pick him up on waivers last year too, though.
But the Oilers did.
Rick, your thoughts on the second year for Mike Smith?
You know what? I think it's a bit of a safety net. I think we just saw Adam Larson walk away when he thought he had something there. I think there's a little bit of a fear in that if you don't have Mike Smith this year, that shit, what the hell are we going to do? I do think he's playing this goaltender market far too passively. I would have liked him to go out and find that 26, 27, 28-year-old goaltender and even pair him up with Smith for this. I think you've got to set your goaltender to a certain price, and I don't think the $2 million is going to set us off that much. If worse comes to worse, you can put in the minors. It only costs you $1 million. So yeah, I think it's a little bit too much. I understand the second year as a safety valve because he went into the goaltender market last year, didn't swing on the first three, and all of a sudden it was gone. And I think he's probably a little bit of hesitant, and the same thing could happen this year. And it's happening, and it's unfortunately happening pretty quickly, I believe. With Jelkovic going, it sounds like Allmark, as of yesterday at least, was going to re-sign in Buffalo. You don't have a lot in terms of assets to make trades, so you might get stuck with the same hand. But Mike Smith didn't. I don't think Mike Smith really had a fluky year last year. I believe he came in and said, you know what, he did a whole bunch of things to change up his pregame stuff and all that. So maybe that saves you an extra year. Maybe you can sit there, but I still don't want to see him playing more than 40-ish games. So I'm terrified with what's going on with the goaltending situation. But him for $2 million for 2 years, I don't think it's that big of a deal because I don't think he can be your number one. I think that's a far bigger deal if he's your number one. I don't like it with Stalock or with Koskinen. So if you're paying your backup $2 million, I really don't give a shit. But you need an actual number one. So I'm more worried about who he's going to get for a number one.
Well, that's my thing too, and it's a good point by you, Rick. And it's like, why was this transaction made again at this time? The Oilers are out negotiating. They're out negotiating themselves.
No, but if he loses him, if he walks away, then you're fucked.
Why? There's so many free agent goaltenders out there.
But you know what you got. You know what you have in Smith. And you don't know exactly what you have in everybody else. You do. You had him for a couple of years. You've got a pretty good idea of his ups and his downs and his goods and his bads. And, he works in the dressing room and he does whatever extra stuff. And you don't really know what you have in some of the other UFAs. You've brought in other UFAs. You're like, I think this guy's going to work well. And it's been a flat tire. So I think it's more of a safety valve. And I get how some people don't like the conservative approach of coaches and GMs sticking with somebody they know. But I think if you were in that situation, if you're a boss, if you're a manager of some sort, and you stick with a veteran of some sort because you know what they can give you, even if it's not the greatest, but you know what they can give you even at their worst, I understand why you have that bit of a safety net.
It's for me, it's the two things, right? It's the bump up in money, which
that's fair,
which is silly, especially when you've given the guy term, more term than I would imagine most teams would have given him.
No team would have given him 2 years.
And then you're making a transaction right now. Like, it's just like I guess, like, to me, you'd hope that at this point Mike Smith has some loyalty to the Edmonton Oilers, right? And so even if he goes out to market and he got offered $2 million at 2 years, you would expect him to come back to the Oilers if he wanted to be an Edmonton Oiler and say, hey guys, can you beat this? Because I'm considering this. And then the Oilers panic and make that decision. Sure. But they it's a log jam now at goaltending again. And it's a bad log jam. It's not a good log jam for them.
I don't think it's a log jam. I think they don't want them there. They don't want Stalock or Koskinen in there. They got to figure that shit out. I don't think it's a log jam, but I think it's a massive problem.
Well, Stalock to me is a guy that Stalock to me is a guy that like he easily gets snagged on waivers if he goes on. So that one's gone.
But that
To
dude
me-
hasn't played in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Since
I
There's
think
last
gonna be a lot of
August.
there's gonna be a lot of GMs who are a little bit hesitant on taking a guy like that.
I think somebody would. Like, I mean, look at what's going on in the NHL just in terms of just weird. Like, Ristolainen got a first round pick, so like they're up
And
to
a
weird
second.
shit out there.
Also, I
so-
don't imagine that Stuart Skinner's gonna be ready anytime soon. So
No, let him play where he's in the AHL. Let
Yeah.
him get his bats in. Like,
Yeah,
this is
no, I
nuts.
don't wanna
He and
see any of our
Konovalov,
three
like,
okay.
I don't want to see any of our 3 potential young kids play in the NHL this year. I
I
think
don't want
there's
another Laurent
more than enough
Brossoit.
spots. There's more than enough. Olivier Rodrigue, and then Skinner and Konovalov. I think there's more than enough spots in leagues underneath us to have them play. I don't want to see any one of those 3 up here.
The interesting thing is obviously Koskinen, right? Like if Ken Holland can actually get, even if you retain 50% of it, right? If you can get rid of Koskinen and not have to buy it out and have that spread over 2 years, what does that look like? Is there somebody out there who would be like, fuck it, I'll take a flyer on this giant, at $2 million or whatever 50% is?
Oh
It's
my
like,
gosh.
why not? He's 2,000 feet tall. His legs are 9 miles long. Like maybe there's somebody out there that takes a flyer on him at 50% retained. That's the question. It's because Mike Smith's back. He's here this year and next. I'm with Rick. I don't think the same duo, that ain't it. And the other goalie that is with Mike Smith in tandem this year, I need it to be a guy who's not going to be getting the discount card at Humpty's for breakfast. That's what I need.
I didn't get that.
Siri, shut up.
Nice.
Fantastic.
She does not understand your joke.
We talked about Juju Arcaro likely moving away. Well, it looks like coming out from Jason Gregor, we may have the replacement in line already in Luke Glendening. If you look at his fancies, you see he's a very defensive-minded center. He's a right shot center, but he does not produce very much. In 54 games last year with the Red Wings, he got 6 goals, 9 assists for 15 points. That doesn't necessarily move the dial, but he'll probably be cheap.
I was gonna say, what's the price tag on a player like him? Because
his last contract was, let me see here. I got Puckpedia open.
3 or something.
His last one had a cap hit of 1.8.
All right.
So that's too much.
I don't see.
$1,000,000, like, okay.
Yeah, I guess.
Another Kyle Turris kind of gamble.
This has to be 4th line. This has to be 4th line. It's got to be $1 million or less. Like what? I don't know what league minimum is this year, but like that's got to be where we're talking about. If Luke Glendening's coming in, because if he's like at $2 million for 2 years, like people are gonna go, "What is going on here?" Because he is not, and I repeat, not a 3rd line center, despite the fact that he played there last year in Detroit.
Refresh your Twitters there, fellas.
Big OEL.
Yeah, for Ann Garland to Vancouver, perhaps.
Yeah,
Man,
that's
things are
the-
Oh, everyone's
happening.
making trades. Wow. Okay.
Coyotes news here, and Ekman Larson and Garland deal with Vancouver is close. That's going to be a big one. Connor Garland's a player actually that I was hoping that the Oilers would be chasing a little bit, but having both he and Ekman Larson coming, like what is Vancouver sending out the other way? Because it's not like they've got a ton of cap space either.
There's nothing in the article here.
Maybe Horvat.
Oh, were they trying to move
Horvat.
Besser or something like
Yeah,
that?
they're trying to move someone
Could have been
notable.
like Besser. Yeah, Horvat they love. This is
Yeah.
obviously their cap. So we'll keep an eye on that. We may just record until the draft starts because Tyler's not here to shut us off. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm just
Tyler?
letting you guys go right now. It's a bit
Hey,
of
if
a
they
long
keep
one,
throw-
but
If they keep throwing us little tidbits like this,
yeah,
Well, let's keep it
it's
going.
more
then, 'cause
content for me to make TikToks out of. So
Absolutely. There's more stuff going on too that we need to talk about. That is
Yeah.
outside of the draft.
It's been a busy week.
It's draft day. We haven't even mentioned it yet. Today really is
Jeez.
it's NHL entry draft day. And there was a time.
this used to be a big party day for us at Oilers Nation.
Oilers Nation, we used to throw some shakers at the Pint downtown on draft day, and they were always fun, but then they got a little bit sad, and then COVID happened, and we haven't had one in a while. But I'll tell you, I would love to be having a party at the Pint tonight.